Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Today is Monday, November 17th, another rough day in the market, but I'm going to tell you why I think everybody has it wrong. And I have a pretty strong opinion about this. So we'll talk about it. But first, I want to tell you where the markets have been. Bitcoin is now 91,980 and seems to be on a downward trajectory. We haven't really established a base with any sort of level of conviction, not yet. And so the sentiment continues to be negative. The VIX is up. This is the volatility index. We're up 13% just today. And typically, when the VIX especially crosses that 20 reading, typically it's a great time to be a buyer. However, every single time when something like this happens, people think, well, now it's different. Actually, now it's the real deal. Now is actually not the time to buy. Now is the time to think about selling. Every single time it happens, it's the same sentiment in the market. I'm here to hopefully help you navigate this and hopefully make the right decisions. Obviously, not financial advice. I don't know the future, but as I said, I really have a strong opinion about this. Tesla is faring better than most. It is at 409, let's say. Bitdeer closed positive. Really had some strength towards the end of the trading day. But if you look at where we have been, we have a lot of ground to cover. But a lot of other names have been really struggling. Nvidia fared better than most in the recent pullback. We're now at 186. Our high was close to 212. CleanSpark also kind of ate it on the chin. You can see here from this chart, my condolences to all holders. They were above 23, close to 24. Now they're at 10. End phase has been on a downward trajectory for a long time. Now at $27. Even gold has pulled back. So only a few days ago, really, we were at 4,400 for gold, and now we're at 4,000. Still pretty elevated, still a solid return. It definitely beat Bitcoin this year, but we are 10% removed from the highs. So make of that what you would like. Again, Bitcoin 92,000 now, so a bit of an improvement since we started. I should do these lives more often to help the market out. Solana is at 131. We're at the basically 52-week low for Solana. Dogecoin is at 15 cents, and Pudgy Penguins is a steal at basically right around 1 cent. So let's talk about what's happening here and why I think everyone has been fooled by the recent events. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to go over this again, but you can see if you look at the top left part of this graph, that's really where the risk is. Money has been migrating to the bottom right, and that's where the risk off is. So a lot of migration from risk on to risk off has been happening in the market. And really, I mean, the main drag on the market is the probability for a rate cut in December. That has now dropped to less than 50%. And this has been really weighing on risk assets. People are starting to question their theses, where we are in the bull market. Has the bull market ended? Have we entered a bear market? Is the top behind us? Did we miss it? people are asking all these questions just because the probability for a rate cut has fallen. Certainly fallen a lot if you compare it to a month ago where it was above 80%. Now it's at 45%. Now, before I even start, if I just show you this graph and consider this an IQ test, if I just showed you this graph and I told you this is the fear and greed index, right? The colored line, that's the fear and greed index. And this gray line, this is Bitcoin price, right? And judging from the relationship that you see between fear and greed and the Bitcoin price, where we are right now in terms of fear or greed, and what would you say the Bitcoin price is? Is it bottoming out or is it topping out? So right now, you can see we are in extreme fear territory as it relates to crypto. And we've been here before. You can see in earlier this year, we experienced similar readings. Where were we in terms of Bitcoin's price? Was it a local bottom or a local top? And in fact, if you try and apply this in the opposite direction, it turns out to be pretty consistent as well. So when we are at extreme greed territories, we tend to be near local tops. Again, if you go back to 2024, the same dynamic holds. If you go to mid 2024, when we had elevated levels, not the extreme levels that we have, but elevated levels of fear, that was towards a local bottom, not a local top. And so now, since we're at a reading of 17 on the fear and greed index, a lower means even more fear. Now, do you think that we're at a top or a bottom? I would say we're probably nearer to a local bottom than we are a local top. But forget the colors and forget that chart. Let's talk about some on-chain metrics. So if we look at the short-term holder supply or short-term holder behavior rather, which tends to be a pretty reliable contraindicator. That is, if you want to do well, a good strategy is to do the opposite of what short-term holders are doing. Some people refer to them as dumb money, but we're not going to go that far. But they typically have a lot lower returns than long-term holders. Short-term holder supply is hitting loss levels lower than the last two bear market bottoms. So if we look at what short-term holders are doing, they are selling, and many of them are selling into a loss. And short-term holders, out of all holders, have the worst performance. And so really, this is very telling. If short-term holders are very sure of themselves, they're very sure that we're actually going down from here, and they're willing to sell into a loss as a reliable indicator that they are, a reliable contraindicator that is, you should take your cues. Now, I was asked before, what do I think about the divorce that apparently has happened between the money supply and Bitcoin's price? And I've been sort of pounding the table on this channel, telling you guys money supply is increasing, Bitcoin's price should be increasing as well. And yet it seems like the correlation is not holding. There's a divorce that happened somewhere along the line between money supply and the price of Bitcoin. My argument to you, what I'm going to posit in this live, is that there's no such divorce. In fact, what has happened is that a relationship has made itself even more clear And that is the relationship between not just money supply, but also PMI, or the health of the economy in the United States, and Bitcoin. So if you look at the PMI, and levels below 50 are when the economy is in contraction, above 50 is in expansion. We've essentially been in the longest period of contraction since 1948. And so we've been in contraction in the economy for about 2 years now. And it does appear that PMI is improving. And and there has been a strong correlation between the price of Bitcoin and PMI. And so you can see that the black line here being PMI, the orange line being Bitcoin. You can see that, roughly there is a pretty strong correlation in terms of general direction. So when uh, PMI is moving upwards, so is Bitcoin's price. When it's moving downwards, so is Bitcoin's price. And you can see that through the cycles. And yet, in the latest uh, cycle, you can see that PMI has remained below 50, so we're in contraction, and yet the price of Bitcoin has continued to rise, generally speaking. And so the reason for this, I'm going to posit to you, is because the money supply has been increasing. So there is a correlation between money supply and Bitcoin, but there's also a correlation between PMI and Bitcoin. And so uh, the the period that we're approaching is a period where we have both tailwinds, I believe, for Bitcoin's price. We have a money supply that is increasing, as is evidenced by the forecast of future rate cuts that the Fed is going to make. And basically, the consensus is around 100 basis points in additional cuts over the next 12 months. But we also have a PMI that is increasing, and I think will go into expansion, especially in the year of the midterm elections here in the United States. There is certainly a vested interest for the party in power to make sure that Q1 and Q2 are very healthy for the economy if they want to remain in power. And so what has been carrying Bitcoin are things uh, that did not include the PMI, uh, whereas in previous cycles, the PMI has been a tailwind. This tailwind has been absent, and yet the price of Bitcoin has increased. And um, and now we're approaching a period where we're going to add to the tailwinds of Bitcoin the PMI. So why I'm saying that everyone is wrong, and it's not everyone. There are some voices that actually agree with me, but the sentiment, certainly overall sentiment, seems to be negative. Seems to be talking about, okay, maybe we missed the top, and maybe this is the end of the bull market. But I think there is a possibility here that we actually were not in a bull market, that we're actually wrapping up a bear market, and that the bull market will actually start when the PMI goes above 50. Certainly, if you look at previous bull markets, that is what defined previous bull markets. And by the way, if you think that it's the halving that defines bull markets, that was the case, I believe, when obviously the protocol was a lot younger, and the halving, meant very big differences in the number of Bitcoin that were being produced. Right now, we're at such a low level or such a low number of Bitcoin that is being produced with every block that I think the halvings are becoming less and less significant. And it was also at a time where Bitcoin's price was retail driven. But today, I believe, and this contributed a lot, I believe, to Bitcoin's ascension despite the PMI being negative, the economy being in contraction territory, the fact that Bitcoin is now institution driven, and that really started, I think, when the first Bitcoin ETF became available in the United States, and then you had many other ETFs, and then you had the digital asset treasuries, and a lot of corporates and even sovereigns adopting Bitcoin. That has kept the price of Bitcoin going up despite the PMI being in below 50. And so when PMI picks up again, I think there's going to be another strong leg up for Bitcoin. So it's not really a question about, and again, al-ghayb la ya'lamu illa Allah. I don't, the future can only be known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know the future, but this is my inclination. My inclination is that we are actually approaching a period, and I'm not sure when it starts, whether it's this week, next week, after a month, Q1 2026, Q2. I'm not sure when it starts, but we are actually approaching a period of a massive appreciation for Bitcoin. And especially when you add on, additional elements, positive elements like regulation, the Clarity Act that should pass, and the increased institutional adoption. I think that we're going to have, and then you look at all of the stimulus that's happening all around the world, and Bitcoin is a global asset, whether it's Japan, China, Europe, all of the stimulus that's happening. I think that the odds of appreciation for Bitcoin are actually stronger, more favorable than the odds of depreciation from here. So, and then the final thing, as if that wasn't enough, quantitative tightening is ending December 1st, and so you had a runoff. That's the white line here. You had a runoff in the Fed's balance sheet that started in 2022 and really hasn't ended since, and it's scheduled to finally end in December. And then you have rate cuts that only started late 2024, but they're still we're basically half the way there to the neutral rate. And yet, despite that, the price of Bitcoin was going up during this period. So when we get additional rate cuts, when quantitative tightening ends, and then eventually after typically it's 3 or 4 months, we have quantitative easing again, we could really see the price of Bitcoin and the sentiment of risk off being substituted again with a very strong risk on sentiment in the market. We have a lot of upcoming needle movers in the market. So Nvidia earnings this week comes out on Wednesday. The Fed FOMC minutes. This will likely be closely watched by the market in order to figure out, what the Fed's next move is. That comes out Wednesday. Non-farm payrolls comes out Thursday. Manufacturing PMI on Friday, and consumer sentiment on Friday as well. So a lot of macro numbers that may help chip away at the negative sentiment or may reinforce it. We'll see. But certainly in the medium term, the short term, obviously very hard to predict, but certainly in the medium term, if we're talking 1 month to 6 months, I think that the odds are favorable for risk on assets. Also, speaking of bear markets, the price of PIF membership is ending Wednesday at midnight. It will. We've kept the same prices since we started in December 2021. Call it January 2022 because it was the last days of December. But we will raise our prices for the first time ever Wednesday at midnight. So if you want to lock in the prices today, obviously current members will maintain their prices forever so long as they're members. But if you want to lock in the prices before they go up, then check out our PIF membership. Link to do so is in the description of this video. So let's take questions. Wraith, UK, salam everyone. Salam Dr. Khalid, salam Abdul Ghani. You may cover it by the time you read this, but what are your thoughts on BTC no longer correlating with M2? Good call. I did cover it. And also gold. I actually think that, the same things the same factors that pushed gold eventually will push Bitcoin. And so gold is a good sort of leading indicator for what happens to Bitcoin. Wises Ages. Assalamu alaikum, brother. How do you check if we're grandfathered with the current rate? So long as you're a current member, you're grandfathered into the rate. By the way, there's only a few. I didn't check before I went live, but there's like maybe 2 or 3 spots. If you want to be a Halal Alpha client, there's only 2 or 3 spots at that 15% performance fee. And then once those 2 or 3 spots are filled, it goes up to 20%. So check that out also if you're interested in having your portfolios professionally managed. We need you to support and nurture us with lives and love during hard times like these. Well, I hope this live helped, inshallah. Really means a lot to our confidence. So I'm glad to hear that, and I hope my prediction is right, inshallah. And I'm not saying that because it feels good. I'm saying, my predictions. If I think things are going south, I'm going to tell you guys. But I'm telling you guys based on what I'm actually seeing, and if there's something I'm missing, then let me know in the comments. Be happy to revise my assessment. But like I said, I feel strongly about this. Okay. The fear and greed index chart you have is not very impressive since it's only a 2 to 3 year time frame. That was at the start of the bull market. You need to drag it back to BTC, cover bear markets too. I think generally speaking, you can't really argue with the notion that buying when sentiment is negative is a lot more profitable than buying when it's positive. Bull market or bear market. I think that's a pretty proven fact. Whether you use the VIX, you use the fear and greed index, whether you're in a bear market or a bull market. I think that's a pretty tried and true rule of thumb. Salam, brother. What do you think will help Bitdeer recover? Any catalyst? Well, I think we got 1% in the aftermarket, maybe. Last time I checked, or 1% on the day, was it? Yeah, 1%. Only a few more to go, and we'll be back. But no, seriously speaking, if you were, following my live, then I think Bitcoin is going up in price. And if you look at Bitdeer's weekly updates, and by the way, just the fact that they have weekly updates is pretty bullish, because you only have weekly updates if a lot is going on for you. So the fact that they have weekly updates is good. In their latest one, they had a record in terms of production or mining of Bitcoin at 125. That means they're mining 500 per month, 500 Bitcoin per month. And so, and by the way, they started this year off mining basically less than 1/4 of that number. So they've ramped up at breakneck speed. And if you do a revenue calculation or profit calculation off of that, you come out with a forward price to earnings ratio, assuming even modest growth from here in their Bitcoin production, of less than 10. Now, obviously, Bitcoin would have to, maintain at least $100,000 price or go up from there. If it falls to 50,000, let's say, the calculation is off. But even if it were to fall, from here, eventually I think it will recover. And during this time, Bitdeer is just taking market share from all of these other Bitcoin miners that are going to high performance computing. And so when Bitcoin eventually recovers, they'll be, the largest in the space. I certainly think that they're, setting themselves up for that. And there's, I think, a pretty healthy valuation associated with occupying that number one spot. So I'm not really worried about Bitdeer. I'm taking advantage of drops to add more to my position, to be honest. If we do get another weekly close under the 50-week moving average, would you sell BTC and rebuy at low of bear market, or would the safest thing be just to hold through it all if we are long-term BTC holders? So I have to say, Anib, so long as my assessment of where we are in the cycle remains what it is, and that is, we have not ended this bull cycle. And in some respects, if you're looking at the business cycle, perhaps we haven't even started it. If you're looking at the liquidity cycle, maybe we've obviously started it in terms of monetary expansion. But if you look at the business cycle, as is evidenced by the PMI, maybe we haven't even started the bull cycle. So long as that remains my assessment, I'm not going to try and pick up pennies in front of a steamroller, as the saying goes. I'm not going to try and sell at 90 and buy again at 75 if I think that there's potential that we go to 150 or 200 by the end of the cycle. So that's how I think about it. Copium and hopium is in high demand. I totally understand that, but hopefully that's not influencing my assessment. Assalamu alaikum, brother Suhail. Nice to see you. Bro, do you think day trading is just gambling? So I kind of refer to short-term holders as sort of, no offense to anyone, but sort of like the dumb money. Day trading is not what the smart money does. Let me just put it that way. Day trading is the insane idea that you can predict what something is going to do from 1 minute to the next or 1 hour to the next, and just a complete waste of time, money, and effort, and health. So highly advise against it. What are your thoughts on Iron, Cypher, Bitfarms, Bitdeer? Should we buy more at these prices? I think they all look pretty attractive, to be honest. It's just a matter of, which one do you like the most? So UpXE is obviously going to be correlated with Solana. Solana is, in the tank like it is today, and UpXE is going to be in the tank even more because it's a leverage play on Solana. But I think the move here for crypto is to basically tokenize real world assets. And I think that the network that has the best chance of doing that is Solana. I understand Ethereum has had no downtime, which is its strong point, but its weak point is that it stinks and it's very expensive and it's slow and it can't handle many transactions. And then Solana beats it on all those measures. So if you have a strong position on Solana, strong view for Solana, I think probably carries over to UpXE. And to be honest, I haven't seen from their management anything that causes me to necessarily say they've mismanaged the company or mismanaged the treasury or done something necessarily wrong. In fact, they're repurchasing their shares. It seems like it's being managed well. So for that reason, I think if you're bullish on Solana, eventually it should impact UpXE. CRMD is dropping. Well, because short sellers stink as human beings, and they found an opportunity and they're taking advantage of it. Now, for something like Cormetics, obviously there's the overhang of they're reliant on one product, and this product they're the price of that product is going to go down substantially mid 2026. That's the prediction. But I have to tell you, even if it does go down, it seems like it's already priced in. So it seems like the opportunity is only up from here. I mean, I don't know how much cheaper you can trade this company. So that's what I think about that. By the way, just generally speaking, let's not talk really specifics about our positions in our portfolios. This is for PIF members, but I will, since I did do an ad for our membership, I'll give people a taste for those who are not members yet. But generally speaking, let's keep our questions more general than specific holdings, inshallah. Talha Naveed says, Assalamu alaikum. If you have some spare money and want to add some crypto, what would you buy in this market? Perfect segue. Become a member to find out. If you enjoyed this live, please leave a like, become a member before prices go up. We'd love to have you. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.